KatFTWynners. I'm your host, KatFTWynn, and I'm here with
River.
And we are doing something completely different than usual. We're not playing a game.
We're reading a game.
Yes, we're reading a game that has already been played. Technically.
Sort of. So a few years back on 4chan, this guy ran something he called Ruby Quest, and it's sort of it's inspired by old point-and-click adventure games like LucasArts or Sierra, but it was all, he drew everything in Paint, and then it was sort of like a role-playing session. People suggested actions, and then he took the best ones, drew the result, and then did a little bit of story. So this isn't the original format it was presented in. Someone edited everything down into an easy-to-read format. So I'm going to be reading the story portions.
I'm going to be reading the derp answers.
And then you'll be able to see all the pictures and everything, too.
Yup. And on top of that, we will do the additional read comments here and suggestions, but otherwise it is purely that. We do not have reactions to this because we have already read it.
Yep.
So this is really just for your guys' entertainment, because I've read this a few times and have wanted to show friends, but they don't necessarily want to read. So I'm sure they would have liked to view it as like a game, like as a visual representation with someone else reading it. So that's why we're doing this. Future warning, River has a cold.
I do.
So if he has a coughing fit or whatnot, or
I'm
sniffles.
sorry.
Yeah. But yes, this is called Ruby Quest, and we are going to start it now.
Yep.
So this splash is based off an image board based adventure puzzle now concluded. Actions used were suggested by readers to solve puzzles and advance the plot, as we said. So, here we go.
It's time to begin. It is very dark here. Hardly anything can be seen.
Turn on the damn lights.
Unfortunately, it's too dark in here. It's hard to tell where the lights are.
Search pockets.
It feels like something metallic with a rubber grip, but there's no lighter, matches, or flashlight.
Walk over to the red thing.
As near as you can tell, the little red light is only a foot or so away from your face.
Reach out and grasp for the red light.
Ah, there we go. Ruby can see now.
Examine that thing we found in her pockets.
Apparently, it's a hand-turned can opener.
Grab the handle near the ceiling of the cell.
A row of small mesh holes open in the wall, venting in fresh air.
Yell, is anyone there?
Ruby yells, but there's no response. Her voice echoes in the small room.
Attempt to tap into her latent vampiric powers to see if she has a high enough level in protein to turn into mist and escape the cell through the mesh wiring.
Sadly, Ruby has no vampiric powers.
Press every button she can find.
Ruby gets the feeling that pressing all the buttons would probably be a bad idea. There are buttons of multiple colors. Which one should she try?
For the hell of it, purple.
Sweet success. Ruby presses the purple button, and the top of the cell suddenly opens to cool, clean air.
What does this say? We already pressed the red button. The green button always gets pressed in every media ever, and the blue button, well, that's pretty, so we don't want to smudge it with our fingerprints just yet. Okay. Get out and look around.
Ruby surveys her surroundings. There are no doors here, except for a portal on the north wall of this room. Unfortunately, there are metal shutters over the door.
Search the trash can in the back.
Ruby tries her best, but the lid of the barrel refuses to be pulled from its base. It won't open.
Check the shelves.
Do you mean the metal shutters? They're blocking the portal to the north.
Look for a way to open that other cell.
The cell/locker/coffin on the ground has a latch on the outside, but it's sealed with what appears to be a digital lock. There's no obvious way to undo the lock from the locker itself.
Damn, if we had a cell phone, we could call Tank and have him upload hacking knowledge into Ruby's head. Tank?
I don't get that reference.
Also, if you get references, put them down. And If I ever forget a question mark, I deeply apologize. Okay.
I'm pretty sure the protein thing was from Vampire the Bloodlines.
Yeah, that's what my hypothesis was there. Okay. Use can opener on can thing in the back.
The barrel's lid comes up with the can opener's tenacious efforts. Inside, there's a few small lengths of bare electrical wire, but nothing else.
Chew wires.
Ruby stows a piece of wire in her inventory.
Get a loadout of all of Ruby's abilities, general knowledges, and physical capabilities.
Ruby has no magical or otherwise extraordinary powers. She has no knowledge of where she is or how she got here, and though she is not a specialist and holds no particularly special knowledge, she is reasonably competent with things most people would be. Her physical capabilities are varied. She's limber, in good shape, but not particularly strong. She is currently carrying can opener, bare length of wire.
Chew on wire.
Ruby is above such primitive practices as chewing on wire and cannibalizing her young, if she had any. And besides, that would not be productive right now.
Schlick furiously.
Ruby has slightly bigger concerns at the moment. Slightly. But besides, there could be hidden cameras around.
Fine. But as soon as we're somewhere where there are definitely no cameras, the revolution begins. Up with the mini skirts, down with the panties.
Stay classy, 4chan.
Check the terminal next to the door.
It would appear these controls are out of order, but even Ruby can tell this looks like an easy fix. Firstly, one of the wires is missing. Splicing it back together would be easy enough with the bare length of wire Ruby found. Then, there are connectors at the back of the control panel itself, so it would need to be screwed back into place.
Can we open the trap? Can we open the trap at the back left corner, but not go down yet in case there's no ladder?
Unfortunately, it's the other way around. There's some kind of access shaft in the corner of the room, complete with a ladder set into the wall, but it's barred off, and Ruby can't fit.
Move the remains of the barrel to one side. See if anything lies under it.
Ruby tries to shove the big barrel aside, but her physique is just too admirably girlish. It won't budge.
Create a saw using the barrel pieces, wrapping the handle with the bare electrical wire. Attempt to saw through the bars.
Not only would a saw made of razor-sharp barrel metal and bare wire be incredibly dangerous to use in any way, it certainly wouldn't have the durability or control to cut through these bars, which appear to be a stronger metal than the barrel anyway. You do get +1 ingenuity for your idea, though.
Attempt to fashion a crude screwdriver using the barrel shards and either the handle of the can opener, if it slides off easily, or by shredding off part of the currently worn clothing.
Ruby sees where you're going with this.
Is Ruby wearing panties today?
Yes, a quick check verifies she's got her underwear accounted for.
Intended to remove an extraneous piece of clothing for the sake of hand protection.
Ruby doesn't have enough clothing on for anything to really be considered extraneous.
Check the terminal situated on the wall behind the barrel.
The digital console appears to be waiting for a command.
Enter command open locker.
That seemed to do something. A soft click comes from the other locker.
While we're at it, enter command sound horn.
The console doesn't appear to recognize that command.
Enter open door.
That got a response, but unfortunately the results weren't what Ruby had hoped for.
Open the locker.
Ruby takes the 2 small coins off the top of the locker and pockets them. She opens it up to find there's no one inside the locker. Instead, all that's inside is a pair of rubber gloves.
That's a lot of evidence pointing to that schlicking session.
Heavy rubber gloves don't make for very enjoyable schlicking.
Enter open access shaft.
It's asking for a code.
Don the gloves, fix the terminal with the wire, and screw it together using one of the coins?
A brilliant idea, especially since it negates the possibility of electrocution. Ruby sets to work splicing the door panel's wires back together.
Inspect the coins.
The 2 coins seem to just be ordinary-looking quarters, but the edges make functional screwdrivers for the flathead screws in the panel. Ruby screws the repaired panel back in place, and the up arrow button lights up green.
Press the green button.
Here goes nothing. Ruby presses the button. The metal shutters start to lift. Oh. It would appear that Ruby is underwater.
Push down arrow.
The down arrow still isn't lit and doesn't respond to being pressed.
Take off gloves, reach out, touch the water.
Thankfully, there's a big glass window separating Ruby from a horrible drowning death.
Enter open access shaft 017.
Using the number on the plaque outside as a reference, Ruby attempts to try opening the bars to the access shaft via the computer terminal once more.
Look outside, see how far it is to the surface. Also, see if any predatory fish are visible.
The water is murky. Ruby can see neither the surface nor any details on the sea life swimming past the gates. Glass.
Climb down. Hope something reaches and shafts her from below.
Ruby descends down the access shaft's ladder. Congratulations, you've escaped the first room. Ruby descends the access shaft and comes upon a new room. There's lots to see here.
Say hello.
Ruby introduces herself and says hi. The prisoner introduces himself as Tom and says hi back. He doesn't seem particularly chatty.
Ask Tom how long he's been here and what he knows about this place.
Tom won't say how long he's been here, just that he woke up in the cell and hasn't gotten out since. He seems uninterested with this particular line of questioning and returns to contemplating his little sculpture.
Walk into the grid.
It's just a metal grating.
Carve pumpkin into the shape of a key card and insert into slot.
Unfortunately, you're not sleuthy enough to figure out how to do this.
What be that in the fish tank?
The fish tank seems to contain, along with the fish, a tiny treasure chest for decoration.
Ask about statue.
Tom explains that this is his opus, entitled The Room is Boring. It appears to consist of a tin can, a letter opener, and a metal plate with screws on its four corners.
Any of the fish look dangerous?
The fish are all quite tiny, and as far as Ruby can tell, none of them are sharks.
And what is that grate below the tank?
It appears to be another sort of access hatch, this time with metal shutters over it. It's labeled Z Hatch, and just underneath where that's written, there's an empty space with 4 holes. It looks like something used to go there.
Ask about those round things in the wall next to him.
Tom explains that the 5 things on the walls are very functional buttons, but so far he's only tried pressing the middle one.
Examine that upside-down flower/light/water sprinkler thing above Tom.
It's some sort of switch that can be pulled, but it looks like it's out of reach.
Use can opener to cut through fence.
The grate is thin, but given that it's a cell, the metal is clearly very strong, and unlike the barrel, it's not worn. The can opener would have no chance against it.
Grab treasure, then dump aquarium on Tom.
The fish tank is bolted to the pedestal it's on, which in turn is bolted to the floor. But the little treasure chest is coming with Ruby. It gets added to her inventory, a little wet. It's about the size of her hand.
Open treasure chest.
It refuses to open. It must be locked.
Get plate, screw in plate, tell Tom to press buttons.
Firstly, Tom refuses to hand over the plate with the funny numbers on it, because it's a part of his opus. Secondly, he couldn't pass it through the small openings in the grate, even if he wanted to give it to Ruby. And thirdly, Tom tells Ruby that when he pressed the middle button, he was electrocuted. He hasn't pressed any of the others, and he will refuse to press any of the others until he's confident that they won't result in another near-death experience. Lastly, he has no clue what the overhead hatch does. He's never seen it open.
Remind us what is Ruby's current inventory.
Ruby is carrying 2 coins, a can opener, a pair of rubber gloves, and now a tiny treasure chest.
Tell Tom that you don't believe him unless he presses another button.
Tom pouts and says that's fine because he doesn't trust you either.
Examine Z hatch.
It's a small portal in the north wall. Ruby might be able to fit through if she crawled, but it's a moot point since it's blocked by a metal shutter.
Hand over gloves.
The gloves won't fit through the grate.
Try prying open the chest with the coins.
No luck. There's not enough of a gap to pry it.
Ask him what funny numbers is on the metal plate.
Tom says he doesn't trust you now, and he won't tell you the magic numbers on the plate. Maybe getting him to dislike you was a bad idea. You're probably going to need those numbers.
Offer sexual favors for his cooperation. Tell him you'll sex him up if he cooperates.
That seems a little extreme. Ruby's not very eager to just give up her body for some stranger to ravage just so she can get a few numbers, especially if there's an alternative. And anyway, she's shy. There must be a way to win over the cat that's not quite so embarrassing.
How about Ruby just flashes him her tits? Oh, no, sorry. And what the? Any further searching for Ruby/Tom34 will result in spoilers. Alright.
There's a lot of porn drawn of this as well.
Apparently. That's not poorly drawn either. Anyway, how about Ruby just flashes him her tits?
Oh no. Unfortunately for all parties involved, Ruby is as flat as a board. That probably won't work.
Give the cat the fish.
Ruby slips Tom some of the small fish as a gesture of goodwill. He's hungry, so he accepts.
Apologize to Tom and mention nonchalantly that you were jealous of his epic opus.
Feeling a bit calmed by your offer of fish, Tom graciously offers to rotate the piece to face you.
Go upstairs and enter OpenZ hatch 211 into the terminal.
Sure enough, Tom's code seems to work, and the system accepts the function.
Climb back down, tell Tom you'll see where the hatch goes, and crawl through it and try to come back to him.
Climbing back down, Ruby finds that the Z hatch is now open. Just on the other side of the wall is a small room. Ruby tells Tom she'll be right back. Tom nods absently in reply.
Now Ruby gets down on her hands and knees and crawls through. Also, she shouldn't bother adjusting her skirt first. I'm sure it will hang fine while she shimmies through the hatch. What was the word on whether she was wearing panties again? Crawl through the hatch.
Ruby gets on all fours and crawls through the hatch with a rather suggestive series of movements. But since that's boring, let's just skip ahead to the part where she emerges in the room on the other side of the wall.
You know what amazes me? TG?
That was the board on 4chan that this happened.
Okay.
Tabletop gaming.
Okay. You're playing a text parser RPG as a anthropomorphic, if crudely drawn, female rabbit. There have been innumerable cries for sexual-related content regarding said anthropomorphic rabbit, and in 190 posts, not one person has said furry. Fucking props, TG. Seriously, you just might grow up yet. Explain what each button seems to do.
Ruby has no idea what each button seems to do. Perhaps you should interpret.
Take diagram of buttons and give it to Tom.
It looks like there was something behind the diagram.
Inspect what looks like a safe on the wall in this room.
It's some sort of metal cabinet, but it's locked up with a padlock.
Take down picture of fish.
It looks like an eye, actually.
Look through what looks like a grate in the door to the left of the room.
The slot in the door is closed and appears to be opened only from the other side.
In before death of Tom, possibly gruesome. What? Okay.
Don't worry about it. You bring the diagram to Tom. He is already starting to trust you, and with the added incentive that only one electrocution symbol is present on the diagram, you manage to convince him the other buttons will not administer shocks. It's time to choose. What button should Tom press?
Button 1.
Tom hesitates, standing close to the grate, then presses button 1, not for a moment considering the diagram could have been coded based on the key sequence listed on the wall panel by the fish tank. Luckily, that doesn't seem to be the case anyway. But nothing appears to happen, except that the button sinks into the wall like the electro button did, and for a moment there seems to be a faint, distant beep.
Check the aforementioned panel.
In actuality, the panel seems to be some sort of card reader. It has three lights all red right now.
Oh shit, I just got it. I know what just happened. Go back upstairs.
On returning to the first room, Ruby's noticed something's changed.
Press down button.
Ruby presses the down arrow button, and in the far corner of the room, another hatch opens up. Looking down, Ruby sees that the shaft leads straight into Tom's cell, but there's no ladder.
So it is flipped. Have Tom press button 2 now.
Ruby calls down the open shaft and tells Tom to press button number 2 now. Tom presses the second button, which causes the metal shutters on the Z hatch to shut immediately.
Tell him to press button 2 a second time.
Tom presses the button again, and the hatch slides open.
Check inventory.
Ruby is carrying 5 items at the moment.
Examine all the symbols closely. Sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Try and combine each of the items with each other in any and all ways that would not destroy any of the items. Adventure games, fuck yeah!
Using 1 coin, the rubber gloves, the tiny chest, and a piece of the button diagram, Ruby fashions together the Junkotron missile launcher. This baby could break through a steel wall. No, wait, they don't. Too bad. I thought you were really onto something there.
Help.
The help and information prompt is markedly unhelpful. The system seems to be local, rather than connected to any external source, which means no internet.
Let's try to reach the lower level for now.
The lever.
Lever.
Unfortunately, the shaft is too far to reach the lever from above.
Drop the can opener down the chute and have him open the can.
Look out below. Tom sets to work opening the can.
No. So that the game won't crash and we'll lose progress. Save game. If Ruby doesn't understand that, type it into the console.
Success! Tom completely mangles the tin can beyond anything usable due to his incompetence in operating a can opener. But from inside the sealed can, he recovers an access card.
Have him toss up the card and the letter opener.
Despite Tom's impressive and manly physique, the card has too much air resistance because of its shape and refuses to be tossed up the shaft.
Toss it so the edge goes into the wind. Tom. Duh.
It's no use. The access card can't be thrown that far without fluttering uselessly out of control. The letter opener, on the other hand, sails through easily.
Open up the treasure chest thing using the can opener.
Unfortunately, there are still no cracks in the treasure chest big enough to pry anything in. It's sealed flush.
Can he throw the panel with 4 screws up?
No problem for someone with such manly physique.
Wire plans.
Sadly, there's not nearly enough wire left in the barrel to make a cord down, even less considering they'd have to be twisted together well enough to hold. Even with the cannibalized circuit panel, there wouldn't be enough.
We should have tossed the can up. Load game. Okay, it's obvious there's a way to get the card without using a method of throwing, so let's go look for useful stuff in the Z-hatch room.
Wisely giving up on this poorly imagined line of thought, Ruby instead descends back to explore the lower levels more, now armed with a heftier inventory. She waves to Tom, to whom she is happy to see alive.
Fun fact, Tom and Ruby started out as parody characters in a comic about Animal Crossing. Tom was disaffected and reluctant, while Ruby was sex-obsessed and friendly. Screw plate back on.
Ruby decides to replace the nameplate before exploring the Z-hatch room again. Despite the fact that there are no visible mechanisms, however, once the plate is replaced, an access card emerges from a hidden slot on the fish tank's pedestal.
Use access card in slot.
The card reader eats the card. It's gone. In response, one of the lights turns from red to green.
Go into the next room and examine again.
Ruby re-enters the Z room. Something seems different.
Say hello to whoever's behind the door.
Ruby's attempts at conversation are futile. The eyes stare coldly and silently from behind the slot in the door.
Examine couch.
The only interesting thing about the couch is how unremarkable it is. It doesn't even have distinct cushions to rifle through.
Try to remove the eye. Use the letter opener to pry the frame.
Ruby fiddles with the letter opener, and in doing so, finds out that it fits perfectly into the empty pupil of the eyeball painting. It locks into position. How about that? A soft click comes from the door.
Open the door.
Fair enough.
Go into the closet hallway of death.
There were some question marks.
Oh. Bullshit. This one. Okay. This one. Okay. Go into the closet hallway of death.
It's a small closet, not much room inside. It reeks of death, but at this point, what choice does Ruby have?
Arrgh.
There's another question mark.
Oh, damn it. Son of a bitch! I knew the Z in Z hatch meant zombie. Run!
Ruby flees the room as fast as she can, but the monstrous thing is hot on her heels, sneaking after her.
Shut the hatch!
As Ruby re-enters the room, she shouts at Tom to press button 2 again, and fast. Tom's already in a confused panic after hearing the unearthly screaming.
We should feed the monster a fish. That will calm it down. Uh-huh.
Tom presses the button.
Head back into the Z room.
Tom opens the hatch just to make sure the monstrous thing is dealt with. No signs of movement come from it or the room beyond, and there is only silence. Inside the small closet is a ball of string. Ruby takes it with her.
/inventory /equip robe /equip wizard hat. It's on now, bitches.
Don't worry about that.
There's something gold in the remains. Pick it up.
It appears to be a teeny tiny key.
Use it on the teeny tiny treasure chest.
It clicks open softly. There's an access card inside.
Use the string to Use string to retrieve key card now.
Ruby heads back into the room with the cell. Ruby calls down the instructions, then lowers the string. Tom ties the card to the end, and Ruby pulls it back up. Tom asks Ruby to let him out. Tom really wants to come out. Tom says he's scared and he's trapped. Tom asks Ruby to please let him out now.
Let him out.
Ruby uses the 2 remaining access cards, and the reader promptly turns green for all 3 lights.
Oh my. He's going to kill her. The whole thing was a trap. Run up the ladder, damn it. Oh. Fuck no, don't let him out. If I saw a bloody head chasing somebody at close proximity, I'd shit my pants. Tom's reaction to the whole ordeal has been nothing short of nonchalant. Something is fishy with Tom, and it's not what he ate. Hug him. You have both been through a lot together. He was almost electrocuted to death, and he had to trust a complete stranger to do something he knew could possibly do the same thing to him again. And I don't think I have to tell you what horrors Ruby has faced. Moral consolation for damn it, Hug. They have no arms, you cruel fiend. Hug him. Aww. To be continued. And we will see you guys in the next part. So keep winning in life, guys.
Bye.
Bye.